Hi, I'm Jessica Vallant, a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I want to bring science-based knowledge, empathy, courage, support, love, and hopefully some fun to the journeys we have with our bodies. There is hope and strength in your body, and my goal is to help you find it. Hi, and thank you so much for being here today. This episode feels different a little bit than others. I'm going to tell you off the bat, I don't know exactly what to say. I took a lot of notes to try to stay on track, but I also know I'll probably go all over the place. And so I'm just thankful to have you here with me. Just think about us kind of chatting and sitting together in some pain, because today is October 18th, 2023. And I think everyone listening can agree it's been a very, very heavy and hard few weeks in the news with everything happening in the Middle East and in Israel and in Gaza. And first, I want to say, if you happen to be directly affected by those events, if you are there, if you have family there, I know I've heard from some members who have had to leave themselves to be safe and are trying to get their families out. Just please know, if you're affected directly in any way, I am sending you all of my prayers, all of my love and support. I am not for a second going to try to pretend I know what you're feeling or going through. I can just tell you that I am here for you, and we at Jessica Vallant Pilates are here for you. And I am just so sorry for the tragedies unfolding. And you may be listening and experiencing other tragedies in your life, and I'm sending you love and support as well. I thought today it just felt wrong to talk about something else with this going on. I know, for those of us here, especially in the United States, we're very safe. Right now, we do have to continue on, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. But also, I just felt on my heart I wanted to talk about what's happening a little bit, but how it affects us and our bodies, okay? Because that's what we talk about here. That's our wheelhouse. Meet Your Body is about how things are going in your body. Physical, mental, spiritual, all the things. And trauma takes many different shapes and many different forms. And it can definitely come from what's going on in the world, the news we read, all of those things, what we're surrounded with. And I've been thinking about it a lot, really, in the past 3 and 4 years, as it just feels even longer, I guess, as it feels like things just get harder and harder and heavier, and so much loss of life, and so many things going on in the world. So I just thought we could touch on that today, on what does happen in our bodies and some ways to take care of our own bodies in that situation. And I need to say before we start that I absolutely 100% understand that it is a privilege that I can even talk about this. If we have the option to address and remove some of this trauma from our own bodies and situations, if we have that option to remove ourselves, then we are in a privileged place. People who are directly affected by these tragedies happening right now, or whenever they are happening in our world, people who are in that, who are directly affected, they do not have that option. They don't have the option to leave and remove themselves. And we do. We are in a safe place. If you are listening to this, you are most likely in a place, at least in this moment, that feels safe, that you can have your headphones on, that you are in your car. And I absolutely am in this place. So please know that I have complete understanding what a privileged and lucky place that I am in to be able to even talk to you about this and to have the option to turn it off. So it's something that we absolutely do need to recognize. And also, it's okay to take the steps that we need to protect ourselves when we aren't directly affected, because I believe that we can help more, and we will be called at some point in our lives to help. We will be called to be a helper. And we need to be ready and prepared to do that. So we need to be at a place that we have the capacity to do it, because we will either be called to be a helper or, and I hope this doesn't happen, but life throws things to all of us. It could be that we are the ones in a situation who need help and need to be prepared as well for that. So while yes, it's very privileged to be able to do this, let's also take that privilege seriously, and let's take the steps we need to help ourselves so that we can then help others and the world around us. So let's talk just for a moment about what does happen physically in our bodies when we are surrounded by stress, tragedy, the 24-hour news cycle, the constant information coming in. And some will be affected more than others. And that's not right or wrong. I'm not putting any judgment on that. I am just acknowledging that absolutely some are affected more than others. And I can say that personally, really over the past 4, 5, 6 years. When hard things happen or tragedies happen, and I open up that news app and I read about them, I take it in like a sponge. And there have been times that I have been paralyzed by it, absolutely paralyzed. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to fix things. I don't know. My husband is a different personality. He will read it and he's affected by that same news, right? He's a loving, wonderful man. He is affected too, but he will internalize it differently. And I don't know what that neurological pathway looks like, but I know he can either compartmentalize it, or he can process it more quickly. He can put things in a different perspective. So we are different in that way. And again, it's not that it doesn't affect him, but it definitely will affect him in a different way, that it doesn't really become physical like I feel like it does for me. And so again, not right or wrong, but just know that it may affect some people differently than others. Also, it will affect you differently if you are already at your capacity for trauma and chronic stress. And I do have one of our most popular podcast episodes is a previous episode that we have about chronic stress. I have a few actually, one that talks about what chronic stress and anxiety does to our bodies, and another one that talks about my own story with chronic stress and anxiety. And so you can definitely go listen to those if you want a little more like a deeper dive. But if you are already at capacity with trauma and chronic stress, it will also affect you differently. If you have been through a health scare, if you're recovering from surgery, like if your walls are down, basically, if your immune system is down, it will affect you differently. So there's lots of different ways that it can affect us, or the levels. But for all of us, we cannot get away from the effects of chronic stress. And those include, these are just a few: fatigue, lethargy, anger, impatience, headaches, blood pressure issues, hair loss, loss of appetite, insomnia, and then even long-term health problems. If we're in chronic stress and that fight or flight long enough, it changes the composition of our hormones. It changes the composition of our cells to a point that we can actually experience disease and long-term health issues if we stay in a place of chronic stress. So those are just a few of the reasons physically it's important to acknowledge it and address it. There's also something that can happen called compassion fatigue. We can become prone to losing our empathy and compassion altogether if we are constantly surrounded by the news of tragedy and people needing our empathy and compassion. Like this happens many times. They've seen it in healthcare workers who need to use their empathy and compassion all day long. They end up having less at home for the people in their families simply because of that effect. It's called compassion fatigue. So please know that that can happen. Like, we know none of this should ever feel normal. None of these tragedies happening in the world should ever feel normal to us, but somehow the news has made it seem that way. It's just one thing after another is what we think in our brains, one thing after another. And we can sometimes just put blinders on and become immune to it. And that's not a place that I believe society and communities should work. And that's not a place I want to get to. So that's an important thing to recognize too. So what happens in our body, we address that. It can also happen that we just lose our compassion altogether. And then what I find too, one other kind of effect, just because it does affect me personally, is like I mentioned, that idea of paralysis. I don't know what to do. Like I will stare off into nothing. I will make an entire meal for my family and not know what I just did because I'm in a fog. I am not present with my kids. And that's the biggest thing I have found. When I get into that dark place of absolute sadness and wondering what is happening to our world and what are we doing and how can we not change it? I mean, I go through, cycle through my head over and over again. I find I am not present with my kids, like with the people who I have been given to take care of directly in this world. I am not serving them because I am so affected by things happening that feel outside of my control. And that actually was one of the biggest precursors to me realizing I needed to do something about my own kind of chronic stress a few years ago that I've worked diligently on, is because I wasn't giving my best to my kids, my husband, to members in my community, to the people around me who I had a direct effect on. So those are just a few of the reasons why I believe it is important to kind of address this, to understand what's happening, to address it. And then I have a few tips. And again, take them if they help you. If not, I completely understand. We all need to go through our own process with this. And I know I'm going to just keep saying it, but I absolutely know the tips I'm going to give here are coming from a very, very privileged place. The fact that I can turn my phone off and not look and go about my day means I am privileged, but I'm also determined to use this platform, this privilege I've been given. I'm determined to use this platform in whatever way I can to acknowledge the people that don't have privilege, to acknowledge the people who are in the midst of this tragedy, and to do what we can, those of us who are privileged, do what we can to make a bigger difference. And before we jump into a few of these tips, I do want to say I completely 100% believe that it is important to stay informed. So I am not saying throughout this at all to put your head in the sand, to walk away, and to ignore it. If you believe that is best for you and your health, I trust you to do what is right for you. I do believe as a member of the world community, as a member of the human race on this planet, as a member of this global community, it is my responsibility to be informed, okay? But being informed is different than jumping into every single piece of information out there and skimming it all and deciding you know what's happening. Being informed sometimes takes years. Like it might take something like this for us to realize, oh, I need to learn a little more. But then it might take a year or 2 or 5 after this to read things differently, to read something that you hadn't read before, to talk to a member of your community or in your neighborhood of a different background than you and learn more. This is the beginning, right? This is the beginning. It's not I need to dive in and in 4 days read everything I can from every single source and understand it all. That doesn't really work. But yes, it is important to be informed. That I do believe. And I think we all have different capacities for that. Okay, so I'm not saying we're all the same and this is how you do it. I just want to put it out there that I do think it's important as a member of the global community to be informed of certain events so that you can support the people in your life who might be affected by them. So if you're going to be informed, let's talk about ways that might be helpful to our bodies to do that. Because as I mentioned, it's actually not helpful to dive into a 24-hour news cycle for 4 days straight and read everything. That isn't helpful to our bodies. That is an absolute fight or flight response. And let me tell you a big reason why. We now go to, again, 24-hour news cycle, social media. Those tend to be our places for news. And I don't know if you know how social media works, and really TV, but social media has it down. They know what we read and what causes a reaction. Okay, we get a dopamine hit when we are there. Literally, that's what happens. It's like doing cocaine. We get a big dopamine hit when we get on social media, and they know that, and they're going to do everything they can to keep you there so that you keep getting that hit. Meaning, the algorithm knows what to give you, and it doesn't care if it's a good dopamine hit or if it's fear or anger, which is causing that change in your perceptive or that change in how you feel. And there's a lot of research out actually around this and why we are so distanced and volatile as human beings now over the past however many years. And social media is actually a big reason, because they're going to promote the posts that cause engagement, even if that engagement is hateful. Okay, so I'm just telling you what happens on social media. So it's not necessarily good for us to be in the midst of a 24-hour news cycle and scrolling on social media. And I'm not going to tell you not to go there, because my next advice is to get your information from trusted sources. And again, I have a few. I'm not going to tell you what they are. You all need your own. And those are created in kind of times of rest. Like, my trusted sources have come from a couple years of following them and seeing what their values are, like where their donations are made. I mean, a lot of things like that, because that's what's important to me. Some of the things that are important to me. And so that's who I will go to get news or what might be happening. I also have a couple trusted sources of who I might go to for empathy, compassion, and then I have some sources I might go to for a different perspective, because that can be important too. But again, you need those trusted sources so that you're just not diving and scrolling everywhere like the next shiny object. What's that? And I've been there, and I do it for this too, because I want to be so informed and I want to be there for everyone. And you guys, it is just so much. It's so much, and the algorithm knows how to give it to you. And then it comes from different sources, like just this and then this and then this and what's true. And I don't know. Have your couple trusted sources, okay? And trust yourself when you've gotten the information that you need. Get in and get out. That will help break the cycle of the dopamine hit in your body. That will help break the cycle of that fight or flight. And it also will just help give you a rest. We were not made to take in this kind of information. We were not. Neurologists know it, doctors know it, researchers know it. Our bodies weren't made to take in the information that the news cycle and social media gives us now, with it all at our fingertips. We weren't meant to. So it is okay to get what you need one time a day and then get out. That is okay. Give yourself permission to do that if you need to. Okay, so have your trusted sources, limit your scrolling. And then one more thing I have about all of that is do not read the comments. I've absolutely learned personally, and I still do it, and I'm like, why did I do that? People have a lot of opinions, and I'm not saying who's right, just people have a lot of opinions, and people absolutely use internet and social media to vent and get out anger. And they're not afraid to say a lot of things. And the comments can be very, very hateful and very hard to read. And again, I just don't think that I've never found really anything helpful in the comments, to be honest. I have, again, in other places, but never by scrolling down through everyone's comments have I come away saying, oh, I learned a lot more. Occasionally, maybe. But just know, comments are a lot of times where that might hike up that nervous system. So read the post from a trusted source. Stay out of the comments. Get in, get out, get your information. Be informed enough that you can help. That's the key. How can you help? Another tip, you can give yourself permission to take a break. And again, this is absolute privilege, and this is something that has been very hard for me over the past few years. I don't know why I was born, where I was, when I was, how I got to be in a safe place when other people in the world aren't, when other moms aren't, when other babies aren't. I don't know. And I don't feel, because of that, because I many times don't feel like I have a right to step away from it. Like, I'm the safe one here. I got to learn. I got to help. I got to learn. I got to help. And I get in it. And it's really hard for me to accept the need to step away from it or to turn it off, because I don't feel like that's my right, because other people can't. People who are living in it can't. So I don't know how to tell you to do this, because it's really hard for me to do it. But you can give yourself permission to take a break. And I think maybe I finally kind of understood that when, as I mentioned, I realized what was like how it was affecting my kids, how it was affecting how I was working with my kids or being with my kids. So that's all I can say about that. But I think it is important to give yourself permission. Like I said, stay informed, do what you need to do, but get out and give yourself permission to take a break. You can also, along with that, limit the information that you take in. So this is really interesting if you want to go back to kind of a research side of it. Robin Dunbar is a person who invented something called the Dunbar number, which is the number of people with whom any one person can have a meaningful relationship. Okay, so how many people can any human being, like how many people are we actually able to have a meaningful relationship? It's 150. That was the number. Some people say it might go up to 200, but that's the max. Everyone agrees we were created and made to live in small groups. And if you think back, hundreds and hundreds of years, small groups, the people lived in small communities, right? Small societies and communities scattered all over. But that community took care of itself. Everyone had a role, everyone had a job, and you took care of that community. That was as far as your abilities or your responsibilities went. And that's what we were created to do. And then again, this thing, I'm not going to say it's bad, but social media and our global world changed all that. That's a good thing, except it didn't really change the ability that we have to only have meaningful relationships to 150. What it did change is that we think we need to have meaningful and important relationships with absolutely everybody that we see on TV and on the news and across the world, and we meet online. And I'm saying this different. Meaningful relationships is different than you helping people across the world, which is important. But that understanding kind of changed a little bit of how I thought of things. Is, again, what am I doing in my community? Right? Like, with my kids? What am I doing to help my kids? What am I doing to help my neighbors? What am I doing to help the people in my city, in my community, in my neighborhood? I think of my membership, people in my membership as part of my community. And by building those up, I would hope by building those up, we are creating a stronger community. And I would hope stronger communities throughout the world can make a difference and help. So I think sometimes we think so globally, because again, we're in a world where we think so globally that it almost makes us feel helpless. Whereas we can understand from research that there can be a benefit to focusing locally. What can you do locally? How can you make a difference locally in your family, in your friends, in your community? And going from there, another thing you can do to actually help relieve stress during these times is to do something. Donate money. Do something for a neighbor. Call or message a friend. I know right now there are so many people hurting who would love for you to reach out to them. Have talks with your kids, whether it's simply about their day or whether it's something bigger about the privilege that they may have and what that means and how to help other kids in their class. My daughter actually came home. She's in 5th grade. And I picked her up from school, and right after school she said, "Mom, did you know what's happening across the world right now? Do you know what's happening in the Middle East?" And I said, "Yeah. How do you know what's happening?" because my kindergartner obviously came home asking asking nothing. And so they watch news programs in 5th grade. This is new. That's why I just wasn't sure. I wanted to get the context before I talked to her about it. But they watch news programs. So it was addressed, and I asked her what she knew about it. And, it was a smaller version. And I just simply asked her, would you like to know more? Would you like to know more about that? And she said, yeah. And I know my daughter, and I knew we could have that conversation, and we did. My kindergartner played on the playground, and her and I sat and had a 30-minute conversation about what I had learned, again, learning, and me telling her I don't know everything. This is what I know. What questions do you have? And that alone felt important, because I can tell you that was a conversation I never had. And now I think she understands more, and maybe understands more how to be a global citizen, how to be a local citizen. So even conversations like that can be really important. Doing something, talking to people you love if it seems appropriate. And then volunteering, like research. Again, I'm always going to go back to it. So this isn't just flighty stuff I'm talking about. Research shows when we do something, it helps our stress. It helps our pain. Doing anything, whether you feel like it's directly related, again, you can donate, you can reach out to your friends who are affected. So whether it's direct or whether it's something for a neighbor, right? You have someone whose yard needs mowing. What do your neighbors need? What do your coworkers need? That can be really important. And then one final thing I'll touch on to help yourself during this time is to move your own body. And we have talked about that over and over again, how movement, again, research shows movement is huge to relieve stress from your own body. So if nothing else, if you feel like you need to stay in it, wherever you are with all this, move your body. Whether that's going for a long walk outside, whether it's going for a hike, or just getting down on your mat, or joining our Pilates for Life challenge this month and just sticking with it day after day. Use movement as healing. Use movement as stress relief. Use movement as a mantra. Use movement as a prayer for the people who are hurting in the world. Movement can be used for all of those things, and it can be very powerful in those ways. So moving your body can help quite a bit as you move to stay present and stay grounded during these hard times. And finally, just know there's power in a simple pause. Just take a moment if you need it. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Close your eyes. Say a prayer if that's in your practice. Say a mantra. Simply listen to what's around you. Hug a loved one. Watch a funny show if you need to. But there's power in those moments as well to calm your nervous system, to give yourself a reset, a reorganization. And there's power in that, both for you and again for the people around you, and for your ability to then make a difference in whatever way you hope to do. So I don't know if any of that helps anyone. I just know, like I said, I couldn't not address it. I couldn't not talk about some of these things. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. I know that there are things that some days I can do some of those things, and some days I don't. Some days I go into social media for an hour and read how everyone's hurting and read all the comments and read all of it. Sometimes I do. And that's part of the healing too, maybe. Just to go in and out and up and down and back and forth and all around. Because there's no answers. There's no right or wrong. There's no answers to how we process pain and tragedy. I think just realizing that it is okay to address your own needs. It's okay to do what you need to for yourself, and to realize that you can have an effect on those around you. And you are more powerful than you realize in that way. I think that's important to know too. Don't let anything that happens in the world make you feel powerless. And I know that feeling, and I know, gosh, I feel that way all the time when I read the news. But then I remember, like I said, for me, my kids are always what it comes back to. That kind of centers me. And I realize, you know what? I'm not totally powerless, because I have these two amazing little ones that I can help be the change that I want to see in the world. I can help their friends. I can smile at them. I can give a kid a hug. And you don't know the ripple effects that may have. So when things feel big, ask yourself what you can do on a smaller scale, because the ripple effects do make a difference. I believe that. And I have to believe that there's hope out there, even when it feels like there's not. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you. That's all. And again, if you're affected directly by anything happening in the world, I am sending you just so much extra love and prayers right now. And I'm sorry for what you're going through. And thanks again for being here, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today on Meet Your Body. If you have a moment, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast, as it helps us tremendously. For more resources and workouts, you can visit my website, jessicapilates.com, or find me on YouTube or Instagram at Jessica Pilates.